Well, here's an idea which is apparently for our own good. Trust us, we know what's good for you. A proposed piece of legislation, the Policing Amendment Bill. Now, I'm already showing my colours a little bit on this one. Can I just say, right at the beginning, I think the police do a fantastic job here in New Zealand. They are dealing with some extremely difficult circumstances, and for the most part, these are upstanding young men and women who are committed to serving their communities. I have nothing against the police. What I'm a little bit concerned about is giving the police in New Zealand unlimited power in a way which seems to clearly breach the human rights and privacy of the rest of us who aren't members of the police. Joining me on the program now from Pillar, Arian, Tashakkori. Kia ora, nice to chat with you again.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
The Policing Amendment Bill. Now, I'm also not saying that the police law doesn't need to be changed, but there's two basic provisions to this bill, two proposed areas of change. Talk us through what we're looking at here, Arian.
Yeah, so this is, as you say, the Policing Amendment Bill that was introduced to Parliament about a week ago and now is gone into the Select Committee stage. Essentially, it proposes two new changes. The first and probably the most important one that we're considering here at Pillar is it allows police to essentially record, take images, pictures and audio, and in its current form, essentially indiscriminately. Now, this bill is in response to a couple of things. Firstly, it's in response to a couple of court cases within the last couple of years, which have essentially narrowed down the police's ability and caused what they call operational uncertainty around, what can we do, what can we film, what can we not film, and so police are left unsure of their rights, which fair enough. But that's also come about, on the other hand, after years of reporting and battles with the IPCA, the Independent Police Conduct Authority, and the Privacy Commissioner, which have come out and said, look, police have tens of thousands of photos that they've been taking indiscriminately, recorded, and we're actually not sure where they are. And on occasion, they've been asked to delete all of them, and they've missed their deadlines to delete them. So in response to a couple of these things, we now have a bill that's looking to provide operational certainty, but as it stands, it's relatively broad.
It reminds me of a case a few years ago, actually, and I'm a little bit gobsmacked that there's a deadline to delete stuff. Select or delete. I mean, that doesn't take a lot of time. However, there was a case a few years ago where police in a part of the country was saying, we've got a problem with antisocial behaviour for teenagers. So we're going to take photos of all of the teenagers that we deal with because, I don't know, maybe they couldn't tell the difference because they're all wearing hoodies, who knows. And it was stored on a database. Now, this is children that we're talking about. Yeah, some children that were behaving poorly, but there was a huge uproar that the police were taking photos of children without the parents' permission, and it was being stored on some database somewhere. That this is an example of what the Police Conduct Authority has pushed back on. This law looks to undo all these safeguards, and the police would have total discretion to collect and store whatever information they wanted on anybody. Is that what you're saying here?
Well, in its current form, the boundaries are not very tight, essentially. Mm-hmm. Now, the reality is, look, having information and being able to take photos is valuable and important, right? Yep. Both for the rights of police in order to be able to do their work, but also for me, if I'm being arrested and there's photo evidence that maybe I wasn't doing something wrong, that's kind of a good thing, and it allows us to provide evidence in court. And so, yes, having information is valuable, but there are limits. Now, in its current form, again, as I will say, the limits are essentially if the police think that the information that they record will or may be valuable to their work, they can do it. Now, as you say, and as the opposition said in Parliament last week in response in the first reading, they said, well, what do they say? What about children? What about recording children? Where's the information being held? The reality is all information is valuable information. If the police had cameras in everyone's homes, they'll be able to do their work a lot better, of course.
Exactly.
But you know what I mean? But
And the police minister he's front-footed this, and he said, well, you know what, we're not talking about a surveillance state here. You trust us, we're the good guys. And I even be happy to give benefit of the doubt. But if they are the good guys, once this law is in place, what does the government of 10 years from now look like?
That's right.
We've got some examples around the world of what a surveillance state looks like. It's not a pretty picture.
No, not at all. And look, I will say, I want to echo what you said at the start of this, is that police do an incredibly wonderful job. And we owe it to our police to provide legislation that doesn't have, like this one, the seeds of future misconduct within it. Yeah. If we pass this law, I'm sure for the most part, most of our police officers will do a generally okay job and will be okay. But in 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time, a police officer will do something which will cause police as an institution, as we've seen in the past 3 years on multiple different occasions, to face huge backlash from the public. Now, as I say, this will have the seeds of future misconduct, and that's not only the bad thing. The bad thing that follows from that is distrust, public distrust in the institution of police. I've been kind of in this space in terms of politics and things, not for very long, maybe a couple of years, maybe close to 3 years. And as you know, there's been multiple cases of police misconduct in the past couple of years. Yeah. And every single time there is a group of the public that comes out and says, we need to destroy the police, get rid of them, they're corrupt, defund them. As you said at the start, police do an incredible job.
They do.
We owe it to them to provide sound legislation.
One of the challenges here is there's a little bit of an us and them, and people are very quick to go, oh yeah, but what about criminals? What about people who are up to no good? Surely they shouldn't have the same individual rights and liberties as the rest of us. But that's not how this legislation works. I mean, for example, the police, if the legislation passes in its current form, they could start a file on anyone and just keep those records. They go, oh, well, here's this guy, Andrew, who works for some dodgy fringe broadcasting organisation. I'm pretty sure he's up to no good. We'll open a file and we'll collect information on him just in case we find something we can prosecute him on. This is the sort of thing that this legislation allows, in fact, encourages.
Well, exactly. Interestingly, a recent court case which this bill looks to address, I'll tell you what happened was there was a normal police stop where they do their breath testing and all that, and one of the police officers decided to take a photo of the two people in the car. Took the photo, held it on a database that, we don't know where the database is and things. And then some years later, there was, an aggravated robbery case that took place, and the police said, oh, we actually have, and they couldn't figure out who the person was, based on the CCTV footage that they had and things, but they had this photo of this man that they'd taken some time ago, and they were able to use that. Now, if you able to use that and then find out who the person was and capture him. Now, if you extrapolate that across all of society, as I said, if we have information on everyone all the time about everything they're doing, sure, maybe we can deal with crime a little bit better, but what is the limit?
Exactly, and let's throw some AI in there. Because things aren't always as they appear on video or in images. Just wanted to touch briefly into the part 2 of the section. Power to close roads. I mean, you'd think, sometimes police need to do this, especially if the bad guys are getting away. However, this isn't just for vehicles. This is for pedestrians as well. What are your concerns here, Arian?
Yeah, so one of the definitions used here is traffic, but they've used traffic to define as pedestrians, so people walking around. Now, interestingly, if you pair that with some of the previous legislation that we've seen in the past couple of months around move-on orders that discusses disorderly conduct or likely to cause harm, again, it's vague, and so some concern here is that if, say, I'm walking down the street and I want to counter-protest quietly, the current wording is, they can close it off to me or ask me to leave that area, even if I'm quietly counter-protesting without actually imposing any harm on anyone around me. So again, those two pieces of legislation, the move-on orders, which we as Pillar discussed a couple of months ago and said, actually, we get the heart of it, but in its current form, it's vague. In a similar sense, we think that there's some, again, low boundaries here.
And of course, the right to protest is important, but equally so the right to counter protest, and the police going, oh yeah, but we don't want these groups fighting. That would be a public disorder thing.
That's right.
And it's easy to arrest the counter protesters because there's less of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Pillar actually has a case happening, representing someone or supporting someone in court in July, which essentially exact same thing happened to him. He was at a protest and decided to record the protest, and people came up to him and started pushing him around, and there's a 2-hour recording of this whole thing because he was in public and just recording, and police arrested him and charged him because it was easier to charge him, the one lone individual, than the people who were the many people who were harassing him. Now,
Wow.
this would now we're taking the police, we're going to court on this and things, but a piece of legislation like this would reduce that man's right, likely to reduce his right to just be there as a member of the public and record a public gathering.
And there's the double standard there, that the police are allowed to record whatever they like and keep it on file, but an individual in a public space doesn't have the same rights and freedoms to be able to take a recording that the police are able to take now. Yeah, there's certainly some concerns there. Arian, a couple of things that you mentioned, and I want to circle back to this because you said a couple of times in its current form. Now, first reading passed, it's in select committee. Is there the opportunity that this, I'm sure, well-meaning piece of legislation could have appropriate safeguards put in place so it's like, okay, yes, we're getting the benefits, but not some of the potential fishhooks?
Look, I want to be very straight up here. There's no guarantee unless people who have opinions similar to maybe you and I are willing to stand up and speak up and maybe even make a submission. Pillar will be making a submission. We'll be at select committee speaking about this. But this is democracy. If we are not able to be responsible, if we just complain and lay back and don't do anything about it, there's no guarantee that the safeguards will come in. And so I won't sit here and say, no, we've got it sorted. We don't have it sorted.
Yeah.
So my encouragement to anyone who is concerned about this is to submit to select committee. Pillar will be making a submission. You can look at our submission at nzpillar.com. But yeah, please make a submission. The other parties within the coalition have also expressed concern. So there is some hope that maybe something will change. But as I said, it's not guaranteed unless we do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. This is what's proposed at the moment, and if there's no sort of counter voice on this one, it's likely to go forward in its current form. Really appreciate the work that you do. That web address one more time, if people wanted to find out more about the submission and the submission process, what's the best way of connecting?
You can find us at nzpillar.com, nzpillar.com.